When a commissioner stands before the media and can't give a straight answer to a simple yes or no question, you know something's terribly wrong. And in early 2025, that's exactly what happened when WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert faced reporters and delivered what might be the most disastrous press conference in league history. But here's what makes this story absolutely explosive. The allegations didn't come from some random critic or disgruntled former employee. They came from Napheesa Collier, one of the league's most respected stars, a player who rarely speaks out, but when she does, people listen. And what she revealed about her private conversation with Engelbert didn't just raise eyebrows, it set the entire WNBA on fire. Before we dive deeper into this mess, hit that like button if you think players deserve better leadership, and drop a comment telling us whether you think Engelbert should keep her job or if it's time for Adam Silver to step in. Now let's break down exactly what happened and why this could change everything about how the WNBA operates going forward. The controversy exploded when Napheesa Collier, the Minnesota Lynx superstar and one of the most professional voices in women's basketball, went public with claims about a private conversation she had with Commissioner Engelbert. According to Collier, during their discussion about player compensation and the massive revenue growth the league has experienced, Engelbert allegedly suggested that players like Caitlin Clark should be thankful for the platform the WNBA provides, implying that without it, they wouldn't be making millions in endorsement deals. The specific phrase that Collier claims Engelbert used, that players should be on their knees, thanking their lucky stars for what the league has done for them. Now, if that's accurate, and Collier has maintained she's willing to provide recordings to prove it, that's not just tone-deaf leadership. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's actually driving the WNBA's unprecedented growth in 2025. Let's talk facts here. Caitlin Clark didn't need the WNBA to become a household name. She was already shattering television records at Iowa, selling out arenas across the country, and generating more buzz than most NBA players before she ever stepped foot in a professional game. When Clark was healthy and playing earlier this season, before her recent injury sidelined her for several games, she was drawing crowds that the WNBA had never seen before. The Indiana Fever went from playing in half-empty arenas to selling out every single game, home and away. Her jersey became the fastest-selling in league history. Her games were drawing higher ratings than some NBA playoff matchups. The idea that Clark should be grateful to the WNBA rather than the league being grateful for what she's brought to it is frankly absurd. And that's exactly why Collier's revelation struck such a nerve. But that wasn't the whole story. When Engelbert finally faced the media before the WNBA finals, reporters weren't there for softball questions. They wanted answers. Malika Andrews from ESPN asked the most direct question possible. Did you in fact say that players should be on their knees, thanking their lucky stars? It was a yes or no question. A simple denial would have ended it right there if the allegations were false. Instead, Engelbert did what politicians do when they're caught. She deflected. She talked about miscommunication. She mentioned ongoing dialogue and collective bargaining negotiations. She said there was a lot of inaccuracy in what was being reported. But notice what she never did? She never actually denied saying it. That silence was deafening. The commissioner's strategy seemed to be drowning the controversy in corporate speak, hoping that if she used enough buzzwords about growth metrics and stakeholder engagement, people would forget why they were angry in the first place. She praised the postseason. She thanked the media. She talked about how the league was bigger and faster and stronger than ever. All true statements, but completely irrelevant to the question everyone wanted answered. When pressed again about whether she told Collier that Caitlin Clark should be more grateful, Engelbert pivoted to talking about how she's a human too, with a family and kids who were devastated by the comments. She was positioning herself as the victim, which is a bold move when you're the most powerful person in the organization, and the actual players are the ones saying they feel disrespected and undervalued. What happened next would shock everyone watching. As Engelbert continued her carefully rehearsed responses, The contrast with Napheesa Collier's raw honesty became impossible to ignore. When Collier had spoken during her exit interview, she wasn't reading from talking points. She was speaking from the heart about systemic issues that players have been dealing with for years. "That's the mentality driving our league from the top," Collier had said. "We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us. The league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them. We have the best players in the world. We have the best fans in the world, but right now, we have the worst leadership in the world." Those weren't prepared remarks. That was frustration that had been building for years finally boiling over. And the more Engelbert tried to smooth things with corporate language, the more authentic Collier's words seemed by comparison. The press conference took another turn when reporters started asking about the massive increase in injuries during the 2025 season. According to multiple databases tracking WNBA injuries, the numbers were up anywhere from 29 to 36% compared to previous years. This wasn't a small uptick. This was a crisis. Players were dropping left and right with serious injuries that were keeping stars off the court during the most important stretch of the season. Caitlin Clark herself has been dealing with injuries that have kept her out of several games recently, a devastating blow for both the Fever and the league's viewership numbers. When Clark doesn't play, ratings drop significantly. That's not an opinion, that's measurable data. So when Engelbert was asked what the league planned to do about this injury epidemic, her response was to talk about how the game is bigger, faster, stronger, and how improved training and nutrition might actually be contributing to the physicality that causes injuries. She essentially blamed the players for being too good at basketball. The logic was baffling. But here's where things get really interesting. The backlash wasn't just coming from players. Fans, media members, and even people within the league's own infrastructure started speaking out. Social media exploded with reactions before Engelbert had even left the podium. Players who normally stay quiet during controversies were suddenly vocal. The message was clear and unified. Enough is enough. When you have someone like Sophie Cunningham, who joined the Indiana Fever in 2025 and has been an incredible addition to their roster, liking tweets that criticize league leadership, you know the frustration runs deep. Cunningham, wearing number 8 for the Fever, has been one of the most engaging personalities in the league. And she's not afraid to show support for her fellow players when they speak truth to power. The real issue that Engelbert seemed completely unwilling to address is the fundamental power dynamic in the WNBA right now. The league is experiencing unprecedented growth. Attendance is up, television ratings are up, sponsorship deals are bigger than ever. Corporate partners are lining up to associate themselves with women's basketball. And yet, the players, the actual product that everyone is paying to see, are fighting for basic improvements in travel conditions, salary structures, and working conditions. The current collective bargaining agreement is being negotiated right now in 2025, and players are pushing for significant changes. They want better pay. They want chartered flights instead of commercial travel that has them sitting in middle seats on budget airlines. They want treatment that reflects the revenue they're generating. And when their commissioner responds to these reasonable requests by allegedly suggesting they should be grateful for what they already have, that's not leadership. That's arrogance. Let's be crystal clear about something. Caitlin Clark, who's currently recovering from injury and working to get back on the court for the Fever, is not making $16 million in endorsements because the WNBA gave her a platform. She's making that money because she's one of the most marketable athletes in any sport, male or female. Companies like Nike, State Farm, and Gatorade aren't throwing money at her because she plays in the WNBA. They're investing in her because she moves the needle. She generates attention. She sells products. The WNBA benefits from having her in the league far more than she benefits from being in it. That's not disrespectful to the WNBA. It's just reality. And any commissioner who doesn't understand that dynamic is fundamentally misreading the current landscape of women's basketball. The same logic applies to other stars across the league. Aaliyah Boston, the number 7 for the Fever, was already a national champion and one of the most dominant college players in history before turning pro. Her value wasn't created by the WNBA, it was recognized by it. When players like Boston and Clark and Collier speak about wanting better conditions and better compensation, they're not being ungrateful. They're being professionals who understand their worth in a marketplace that's finally starting to catch up to what women's basketball has always deserved. Now, here's what makes Engelbert's position even more precarious. She declared during that press conference that she's not a quitter. Nobody had asked her to quit at that point. Nobody had called for her resignation in that specific moment. But by bringing it up unprompted, she revealed that the pressure is getting to her. She's feeling the heat. And when a leader starts talking about not quitting before anyone's asked them to step down, that's usually a sign that the conversation about their future is already happening behind closed doors. Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner who oversees the WNBA's relationship with the NBA, has to be watching the situation very carefully. The WNBA is a crucial part of the NBA's overall strategy and brand identity. If the women's league is being mismanaged to the point where the players themselves are openly calling for leadership changes, that reflects poorly on the entire organization. The timing of all this couldn't be worse for Engelbert. The WNBA is negotiating a new media rights deal that could potentially be worth billions of dollars. Networks are finally recognizing that women's basketball draws audiences and generates revenue. But those negotiations depend on the league being stable, unified, and growing. When your most prominent players are publicly saying they have the worst leadership in the world, that's not exactly the message you want potential broadcast partners to hear. Sponsors want to invest in leagues that are well-run and have positive relationships with their athletes. The current situation is the opposite of that. It's messy, it's public, and it's getting worse by the day. What's particularly damning is how Engelbert handled the specific question about Caitlin Clark and gratitude. When asked directly if she believed that without the WNBA platform, players like Clark wouldn't be making what they do off the court, she again refused to give a straight answer. She praised Clark as a transformational player who brought in tens of millions of new fans. All true. But then she pivoted to talking about Clark's injuries holding her back from a full season, which felt like a subtle way of diminishing her impact. The subtext seemed to be, see, even your biggest star isn't perfect. It was a bizarre strategy that only made things worse. Clark's injury issues in 2025, which have kept her out of recent games, don't diminish what she's accomplished. If anything, they highlight how much the league needs her healthy and playing. The press conference ended with Engelbert trying to redirect attention to celebrating the WNBA Finals and praising the Indiana Fever for their resilience despite injuries. It was a transparent attempt to change the subject, and nobody was buying it. Reporters packed up, knowing they hadn't just covered a routine media availability. They'd witnessed a moment that could fundamentally alter the power structure of the league. The questions being asked now aren't just about one conversation between a commissioner and a player. They're about whether the current leadership understands the moment the WNBA is in and whether they're capable of managing the league through this period of explosive growth. Here's what's at stake. The WNBA has a chance right now to become something truly special. Women's basketball has never been more popular. Young girls are wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys to school. Attendance records are being shattered. International interest is growing. But all of that momentum can be squandered if the people running the league don't understand that the players are the league. Not the logo, not the corporate partnerships, not the media deals, the players. And when those players feel disrespected, undervalued, and dismissed by leadership, everything else falls apart. Napheesa Collier didn't speak out because she's a troublemaker, or because she has an agenda. She spoke out because she's watched this pattern repeat itself too many times and decided enough was enough. The comparison to how other leagues handle similar situations is stark. When NBA players have issues with league policies or leadership, there's usually a dialogue. Sometimes it's contentious. But there's at least an acknowledgement that the players have legitimate concerns that need to be addressed. The NFL, despite its many problems, has a players' association that wields significant power in negotiations. But the WNBA seems to be stuck in an outdated model where players are expected to be grateful for the opportunity to play professionally, rather than being treated as the valuable commodities they actually are. That mindset might have worked 20 years ago when the league was struggling to survive. It doesn't work in 2025 when the WNBA is generating real revenue and real interest. So where does this leave us? Cathy Engelbert is still the commissioner, but her credibility with players appears to be at an all-time low. The collective bargaining negotiations are ongoing, and players now have more leverage than ever because they know the league needs them more than they need the league. Caitlin Clark will eventually return from injury, and when she does, she'll continue to be the biggest draw in women's basketball. Sophie Cunningham will keep being a fan favorite and a crucial part of the Fever's success. Aaliyah Boston will keep dominating in the paint. And Napheesa Collier will keep being one of the most respected voices in the sport. The question is whether the WNBA's leadership will rise to meet the moment, or whether they'll keep clinging to outdated ideas about player empowerment and value. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about where this league is headed. Do us a favor and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates on this developing story. Drop a comment and let us know. Do you think Engelbert can recover from this? Or is it time for new leadership? And share this video with anyone who needs to understand what's really happening behind the scenes in the WNBA right now. The next few months are going to be crucial for determining the future of women's professional basketball. And we're going to be covering every twist and turn. The players have spoken. The fans have spoken. Now we wait to see if the people in charge are actually listening, or if they're just going to keep reading from the same tired script that got them into this mess in the first place. One thing's for sure, the WNBA will never be the same after this, and that might actually be a good thing.